Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another segment of our chart analysis series. And now, at this moment, we'll be talking about Euro USD. We'll be analyzing Euro USD. We'll be talking about what potential move we stand to see in the market in the coming days and weeks. Right. So, moving on to it, on the monthly time frame, as we can see, we have Euro USD on a downtrend as well. Don't forget we're on the monthly time frame, so each candle here represents a month. So as you can see, the downtrend started all the way from 2008, right? Since 2008, we've been on the downtrend on Euro USD as a pair. So now on Euro USD, we've identified the general market direction as a downtrend. Now let's go over to the weekly. Don't forget, what do we do on the weekly? We come here to get a general, to get zones that are feasible, zones that hold generally in the market. Don't forget, I've always said any zone that holds, I've always said, this is a new YouTube series, but with my guys in real life, I've always told them that any zone that holds on a weekly time frame will most likely hold again and again until it has broken through, right? So on the weekly time frame, there are zones we'll be looking out to, pay attention to. And this happens to be one of them, right? So this is a zone we'll be paying attention to on the weekly time frame on Euro USD. So generally, on a downtrend, we have this point here that has been holding since 2018, since February 2018, held again in 2021, and now we are rallying back into that zone in 2026. So you see it's years apart. So that is a zone we have identified on the weekly time frame. Now let's scale down to the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, what do we have? On the daily time frame, we're here to look for the current trend of the market, right? Now, the current trend of the market suggests an uptrend, right? It is an uptrend as somehow falling into this consolidation because there hasn't been any major move, right, since this point. Since July 2025, there hasn't been any big moves yet. So, is it consolidation? But within the consolidation, there are still moves to be caught, right, on a lower time frame. So generally, what we're just going to do is mark out, the low of these points. This is one low. Why we're marking out this low is because on this trend, on the daily time frame, the uptrend on the daily time frame, this is the lowest point that is yet to be broken before we can, now call a change of character. Because ever since we have been on an uptrend, right, this is the lowest point, and then this is the highest point that needs to be broken before we can see, so that we can confirm our move to the upside. Alright, so on the daily time frame, this is what we have. Don't forget I said we are in what seems to be like a consolidation. But within this consolidation, there are structures that are in place for us to, catch, to make most of what is going on in the market, right? So within this, we can position to catch a few pips from the market. Now, if we further go down, what do we have? On the 4-hour time frame, we can see that we've been on a downtrend, right? We've been on a series of lower highs and lower lows and lower highs and lower lows up to this very point here. This is the lowest point. and somehow it corresponds with the point that we've drawn from the daily time frame, right? So this happens to be the lowest point now on this time frame. There seems to be a lot of consolidation on this particular pair, EURUSD, on the higher time frames, right? Now on the 4-hour time frame, there seems to be a zone over here. I'm gonna map that out. Right, so this happens to be a zone on the 4-hour time frame, right? So it means that what we are expecting is a break above this zone. From this point, we expect a break above this zone, closing above it with a candle body, and then a rally back to the other block that caused that move before we expect to see the final move to the upside, right? That's in the case of an uptrend. Or else the next thing we'll be expecting is once price gets to this zone or probably below, we expect it to come down and close below this point, right, with a body, go back to the other block that caused that move, and then give us the move to the downside, in continuation of the trend that has been on the much higher time frames, right? So don't forget, on the monthly time frame, we're on a downtrend. So there's a possibility that that downtrend might continue, and then paying attention to the fundamentals, you see that the downtrend is something that that seems promisable, right? Because USD at this point, because of the wars and everything, people are going to most likely be investing all their hard-earned currency, converting to USD, and that is most likely going to drive the value of the dollar up and reduce the value of the euro, right? Don't forget, demand and supply is what moves the market. So let me quickly get this off my screen. Correct. So this is what we have currently on the 4-hour time frame. So what are we going to be waiting for now? We're just going to be waiting for a move that would break any of these zones we have right here. One that would break it to the downside, or one that would break it to the upside, and then we expect a rally back into the other block that's caused that move, and then we join the trend, right? So that's generally what we're expecting. So for this move on this 4-hour time frame, this is what seems to be an order block, right? On the 4-hour time frame, this is another block because this is the last indecisive candle that happened before this major move up. So on that note, we're going to be, as we've already mapped it out, we're going to be mapping out this zone, and then we'll wait for price to do what's to meet up all our confluences. Don't forget, our confluences continues to remain our order block, our fair value gap, a break of structure, in the direction in which we're expecting it to go, a break of structure to that direction, right? And then a tap into the order block, right? So what we're expecting basically is for price to create liquidity around those points, break structure to the upside, come back, clear that liquidity, tap into the order block, and move bam, right? So if that's what we're expecting, right? So that's really what's going on Euro USD now, but that would be a trend in the opposite direction, right? So don't forget, the higher time frame analysis is always there for a reason. The higher time frame direction is always there for a reason, for you to understand the general direction of the market, right? So that's why we always have the higher time frame analysis, and that higher time frame tells us we're on a downtrend. So honestly, it will be somehow for us to expect a move to the upside. Expect the market to, continue just breaking up to the ups, to move to the upside and continue, going up, right? Because on the higher time frame, the market is going down. But don't forget, it's the market. What we are supposed to do is go with the flow, not try to dictate the flow, right? So on the higher time frame, we just, since we're on the downtrend on the higher time frame, this other block mapped out here, don't forget this other block is still invalid. I just mapped it out because that's the last point of indecision that happened. So we're expecting something reasonable, something relevant to happen. What do I mean relevant? We're expecting the break of structure to the upside. Until that happens, right? A change of character first, then a break of structure. Until that happens, this other block is irrelevant, right? So to speak. This other block is still irrelevant, but I just had to mark it out. So we know, the last point we're expecting it to cross, to get to and expect a reaction. At this point, there's definitely going to be a reaction because you can see it's a support zone, right? So, but what it does at this point is what will determine, what direction of the market we're going to jump on, right? So, yes, that's basically what's going on at the moment. So we just have this mapped out here. There's a big probability for it to break below it and continue the ride down. There's a big probability for that. So generally what we're just going to be doing is watching the market, observing what it does, and flowing with the trend. Don't forget, the trend is your friend. And like I would always say, this is an analysis series. This is just me trying to air my point of view on what I think the market is doing. Don't ever jump into any trade recklessly without observing proper risk management and carrying out a proper chart analysis, right? It's always proper to do the work yourself, study the charts, know what the chart is doing for yourself. So when you're making your moves, you are accountable for all your actions. That is a better way to learn and learn fast. So that's it guys for EURUSD. See you in a moment. Bye for now.